Welcome to another episode of the Skytale Insights podcast. I am thrilled to be joined by John Wheeler today. I think he doesn't need an introduction, but he is CEO of Alpha Aesthetic Partners, which I was just looking at the website. The website, this might be updated because I know you move really quickly, but it looked like there were 13 partners, almost 30 locations, big numbers, which is really exciting to see. And I will say I feel particularly honored that you are here today because John has a new addition to his family coming imminently. So his time is particularly valuable as family prepares and company prepares, I'm sure, for baby number 3.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And we're in crunch time. The hours are few until we have a family of 5, which is exciting.
Yeah, I feel like I'm always in crunch time already, so I can only imagine how you must feel. Well, first of all, it's so fun to have you here. Your name precedes you in the space as a leader. Maybe I'll even say you're known to be a cool leader. You're in a black hoodie. Maybe that's a Bay Area uniform. We both sit in the Bay Area.
I don't claim the Bay Area.
Oh, what do you claim?
Well, like Eastern. I'm a kind of Tahoe hill country.
Yeah.
Sierra Nevada's guy.
There's few things are more beautiful than the Sierra Nevadas in that part of our state. But I always love our conversations, including your podcast, the Great Friends podcast. And I know Alpha has many. I mean, how many podcasts do y'all have at this point?
We have 5, maybe 6, somewhere in there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So maybe you should be leading this one. I'll just hand the baton to you. But I always love to start out. I think the journey behind leaders is, I was a psych major. It always is really fun for me to understand, and I love your background. You went from being, it looks like, a pastor, and being incredibly involved there as a leader to starting your own events company as an entrepreneur. And then, starting the Aesthetic Center, which is, of course, what led you to Alpha. So I'd love to hear the voiceover of that career and, how, some of those things that you learned along the way maybe serve you today.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I get that question a lot. Almost every time I meet somebody, they're like, how'd you go from being a pastor to what you're doing now? And it's funny because like a lot of things in life, right? Like when you're in it, you're not really reflecting on, that is kind of a weird journey. But I'm continually reminded that it's not a super normal journey. I will say though, that the biggest thing that I learned along the way is if you can lead volunteers, you can lead anybody. And so when you're in ministry, I mean, for most churches, obviously there's some really big, wealthy churches out there. I was not at one of those. You're leading volunteers and you're operating on a shoestring budget. Yeah. And so it forces you to do 2 things. Number 1, to cast a vision and rally people around that vision. And then number 2, just to be super efficient with how you deploy and use resources. Mm-hmm. So yeah, like you just every single day. And then I guess number 3 would be you're constantly, when you're casting that vision and rallying people around it, to get people to show up on a Saturday morning or on a Sunday morning or whatever, to volunteer, to spend really precious weekend time volunteering or whatever it might be, or somebody that has 2 weeks of vacation, spending one of those 2 weeks of vacation every year with 75, 120 high schoolers on a houseboat in Lake Shasta,
Hey, I've done that. It's actually pretty fun.
Yeah, I think it's fun, especially if you're one of the high schoolers. But it's like I'm going to give half of my vacation away this year to a bunch of kids. Yeah. So how do you do that? Again, it's really getting clear on what is the preferred future, right? What is leadership? Leadership is right now our point A. As a leader, I can see point B, right? Like we think about this word, we say she's a visionary, he's a visionary. What does that mean? Literally a visionary is just somebody who sees, right? So as a leader, we stand at point A, having point B in our mind, painting that picture of what point B is, why it's better than point A.
Yeah.
And then we embark on that journey together with our team. I mean, that's really what it is. And you just learn how to do that over and over again, without this crutch of a paycheck as a pastor. And then again, you're preaching, you're speaking all the time, and you're honing that gift, which I think also comes in really handy as a leader, right? Like, I mean, hundreds, if not thousands of times over the span of 7 years that you're speaking, sometimes to a room of 1 or 2 kids, sometimes to a room of 2,000 or 3,000 people, if not more, and everything in between, right? And you learn to prepare and to be present and to really, again, cast that vision.
Yeah. I've been thinking about it. I think, my path here is not particularly straight either. So I hear the question, but, at the end of the day, your role as a leader is to inspire, and it's to inspire your current team. It is to inspire potential team, like candidates, especially when you're early on in a company. It's like, you're like, okay, you candidate, leave big company with big stable paycheck to join me on this dream that I have. It's inspiring investors, right? Like, it really is to, not only inspire, but I think you said this really accurately, which is understand how do you do that with different cohorts of people, because the way in which you inspire, a consultant on my team is very different than how I need to inspire a disgruntled client, not disgruntled with us, but just disgruntled with their business, which is maybe what led them here, or to inspire, again, whomever that's related to the firm. So I actually think that that's what a gift to have that skill set so early. I'm sure that your investors also love the ethos, that scrappy ethos of how do you do a lot with a little. There's also a third component. I don't know that I've been thinking increasingly about, another job as a leader is to make hard decisions and to make decisions no one else really wants to make. Like, let's call a spade a spade. And having a framework of what is the North Star that I'm trying to get to is increasingly something that I personally rely on. I've been thinking about it because we have an offsite on Tuesday, and, I've been thinking about sort of where I'm trying to get. And I also imagine that as a pastor, that North Star it's more apparent than it might be in many settings, because there is a broader mission behind what you're doing. And again, like, there should be a mission behind what you're doing at any organization, profit or not for profit.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. So as you grow in your role in leadership, right, as an executive, at this stage, COO of a large company at Alpha, I totally agree with you. I think about that a lot. Like, what's the kernel of my job today versus, when I had, when we were at Aesthetic Center, or, when we were growing, like, early stages of Alpha, what was my job then? More and more, exactly what you said. My job is really just judgment. I don't mean that like judging people. I mean, really like exercising my own judgment of a situation. What is my ability? What is your ability to assess a situation, to ruminate on it, deliberate on it, and make a really wise, sound decision that isn't emotional? Not that emotion is bad, but like, it doesn't always lead to the best decisions, right? So like, it's not based in emotion. It's based in logic. It's based in wisdom. And it's the right decision. I mean, more and more like that's what my day becomes is, here's a problem that it's coming across my desk because it's such a large problem that it has to.
Yeah.
And what's my decision on that? What's my guidance?
Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure too, right? Like, cause you're like, how do you build that muscle? I'd be curious for you. Like, how do you wise decision-making muscle?
Well, I think you said something wise just before this, which was, if it's a decision that needs to come to my desk. So I think there's a whole subset of decisions that I push back on my team, because they have far more information than I do to make that decision. And so it's kind of the what do you think, what do you think, what do you think, and of course your guardrails to make sure that there's a coaching mechanism there and nothing goes off the reins. But I think like first litmus is like, am I the one who should be making this call? Okay, great. That's the category that we're talking about. Something I think a lot about is like, will thinking more about this get me more information? And sometimes there isn't actually a right decision. So you just have to make the call. And it might work and it might not work. And our job is to fall on the sword a little bit. Then there's the wise mind decision making, which you're talking about, which is, how do I ultimately make a call with something that's, clearly not black and white, or else we wouldn't be having this conversation. It's such a good question. I mean, the real answer is I think that I first started doing this out of necessity because I had to make so many decisions. Like at my old company, you just have to go, because if you spend too much time ruminating on any one decision, like nothing will get done. And I think over time you learn what are those quick decisions that you just make the call and you run for it. And like the best thing that you can do is, if you understand that that was the wrong decision, pivot and not lose brain cells or not lose sleep over that. But again, I think, for the wise mind decision making, it really is where are we trying to go? What is my moral compass as a leader? And how do those two go hand in hand? Because the sort of, we used to take an ethics class in business school and we all thought that was like a little bit silly, but like it turns out that's incredibly important. Because it is true, especially with people and jobs and lives, these are big things that we're thinking about.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I love that you're highlighting, again, what's the vision of the company? What are the values of the company? I mean, those are North Stars, right? And I think that some of that, can be learned, maybe like you mentioned in ministry, but a lot of that's just rooting yourself, anchoring yourself, and where are we trying to go? And then again, what are my values, right? As CEO, what are the values that I hold dear, that I'm bringing to the forefront of this decision? Man, what a journey. Like I have found that there are a few things in life that have been as personally developmental by necessity as running a large company. And it's, you continually, you hit these milestones, which also become ceilings of growth, right? Where it's like, man, what got me here isn't going to get me to that next level when it comes to my own personal development, my own emotional, intellectual development. So it's just this process of continually putting in work in every phase of your life so that you can make better decisions with better judgment, to be more calm, more rational, more kind, more generous, right?
Yeah. I love, that framework of what got me here isn't necessarily what's going to get me there. I think that that's like that carries at work, that carries in your personal life, right? How do you, when you're sort of thinking about, you're hitting that ceiling, you sort of climb this mountain and you're looking at that mountain, it's a lot bigger and it's like, uh-oh, I've never climbed a mountain that high. How are we going to do this? How do you think about kind of understanding what you need to work on to be the leader to get there, and thinking, how do you think about that developing that muscle?
Yeah. So, man, I wish I was as smart as that question might suggest, but I'm definitely not. So most of my personal development is more, I'm just being very honest with you.
This is what this is here for.
Yeah. It's more reactive than it is proactive. Yeah. So it's a lot less like, we're going to climb this next mountain. To do that, this is the type of person I need to be.
Yeah.
A lot of my development has been more like, okay, this is a problem that I'm facing. Maybe it's consistent, or maybe it's a singular occurrence, but maybe it's particularly intense, right? So like, what am I going to do in the spite of all of these challenges that I am facing and have facing, most of which are, either in the present tense or in the past tense, not as much in the future. So like, man, I'll tell you, I have a bachelor's in theology. I have a master's in divinity. I do not have an MBA. And so in the early part of my time at Alpha, right, like I'm running a private equity backed platform. It's like, well, like I don't really have a whole lot of business classes that I can hang my hat on, or finance classes that I can hang my hat on. So that can't be a liability. So I need to immerse myself in all things financial intelligence and financial acumen. And so that was a major part of my story. For me, the first year of Alpha was really just mastering these financial documents, right? Which for us, the most important documents that we think about, we look at all the time is number one, our P&L, obviously. Number two would be our cash flow forecast, 13-week cash flow forecast. And then number three would be our capital planning document, which we have, which basically, you know, when we're making acquisitions, we use, some debt, things like that. And so there's some documents that we look at to make sure that all these ratios are where they should be. And, you know, going down the road that our EBITDA matches up where we need it to be. So that was like the whole first year of development for me.
Yeah.
You grow to a point, like I said, where you start to fully understand the financial documents and all of that. You're just totally locked in there. And then again, a lot of it's just personal development to make great decisions, to be a great leader, to be present for the team, to build a healthy culture, right? I'm a firm believer that a healthy person can build an unhealthy organization, but an unhealthy person cannot build a healthy organization. So not all healthy people have healthy companies, but it's possible to be unhealthy and to have a healthy company. So my best shot at building a great culture is to be healthy myself and to look for ways to, again, to optimize the health of our organization, to build the values, the vision, all that.
Yeah.
So that's been a big part of my personal journey at Alpha.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, I mean, there's a lot of wisdom there. I think especially the takeaway that happy and healthy people do the best work. That's like always my framework. And healthy in an all-encompassing way, right? We're not just talking physically, because it's a marathon. You know, if I've learned anything over my career, it's you can sprint and sprint, but you will burn out. And, you know, obviously we work hard, but it's a long game. And so I think you are modeling that for your team is actually probably more valuable than you know, because they're learning, right? Especially those who are newer in their careers. But I love that framework of, you know, suddenly you're working for a private equity backed company and like, surprise, surprise, private equity loves numbers. But something I remember, it was like my first internship summer at Bain, and I was going on like one of my professional development walks with like a big fancy partner. And I was thinking, I think I was having like an existential crisis about the fact that like I came in to Bain in part to get that business toolkit because I studied neuropsych and English in college, which were delightful, but like didn't tell me about EBITDA. And she told me, she looked at me and said, Annie, just remember that the reason you're here is not that. Like, get that to good enough and then lean into your spikes and what makes you really, really different. And I think,
what was that for you?
I think it's such a good question. I think being able to draw people in and make connection within a room. Sort of the dynamic of just watching how humans all interact and making sure that you're sort of facilitating what will lead to the best outcome, whatever that is. I think, I'll find out. Maybe it'll change over time. Right?
So building team, drawing people outside of themselves and into the whole, right, into the group, facilitating people's intelligence and wisdom so that they can contribute to the group. You'd feel like that those are your superpowers.
I like you. I'm a total team person. I'm obsessed with my team. I would spend way more time with them than they probably would want to spend with me. But that's what it should be like, right? Like you should genuinely if I think you become, if you think about life is really finite and the people in your life rub off on you. And so why not make sure that those are people who whatever rubs off is something that you would want to put in your back pocket. And it's something to think about. Actually, I'm an introvert, so maybe I think about it a lot, but it's something to think about, all the time.
Yeah. Well, I think you're also a great strategist. And the other thing too, that I think is required, that I definitely didn't learn in pastoral ministry, but have had to learn, and actually it's become, and I've uncovered it as a strength, is just execution. Right. And I think you're a great executor. And all of the inspiring words, all of the vision casting in the world to me is completely meaningless if I'm not able to execute, get my stuff done, do what I say I'm going to do when I say I'm going to do it. I would also argue that's just being out of integrity, right? If I'm constantly making agreements and not keeping them. So I think that the 1-2 punch that I've found as most effective with great leaders is I can cast a vision that I can execute. There's nothing actually that drives me crazier than leaders that are just like, you get them in a meeting and they're awesome in the meeting and they got all these ideas. And then it comes time to execute on the ideas and to be held accountable to to-dos. And it's just like nothing. It's like, well, you're actually contributing to frustration and to unhealth on the team because you're just like spouting off all these ideas. You're creating all this work and you're not doing any of it. And I hate that. That's like my pet peeve.
You're preaching to the choir here. There's a reason I spent my whole career. I mean, there's like nothing like, when someone just like whiteboards and then, okay, but then whose job is to catch that whiteboard, structure that whiteboard, figure out who's going to do the thing, when they're going to do the thing. I mean, I feel like I've spent so much time, much of my career, this is certainly not been of Skytale, but much of my career with like really visionary startup founders were like, they'd like, pew, 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 pew. And it was my job to sort of like catch that and like do, goodbye, keep thinking I will go do the thing. But to your point, the ability to flex, that's kind of I think the sweet spot that we're all working towards as leaders, even in part just to signal that like, you're not above, I'm not above I can't maybe do everything as well as folks on my team, which I think is a really good thing, but I'm not above doing any sort of task that I would ask anyone else to do.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I will tell you that so things don't always go perfectly with every partner, right? Like integrating a business into alpha is always difficult, no matter how big the business is, right? Like our med spa owners that are listening to this, you can think about how many vendors you have, like, right? Like even just that alone, right? Just vendors. And there's so much to lifting and shifting two businesses together. But if all you thought about was vendors and the propensity for things to break, right? And then, or maybe not break, but just not go 100% perfectly.
Yeah.
Anytime we have an integration process or a partner where it's like, hey, I'm feeling frustrated, the team's feeling frustrated. What I found to be the most potent thing to do is to get on a plane, fly out there, and not give any sort of like an inspiring message. That's like the opposite of what I think works. Really what I think works is like, hey, let's just sit at a whiteboard. You tell me, like, let's get with the leadership team. Sometimes it's even been the entire team. If the entire team's feeling frustrated with the partnership, let's just whiteboard everything out. You guys lead the process. I'm just going to be a part of writing it down. What's everything that's frustrating here? And then once we get all of that out, how do we create a plan against every single one of those items that are on there, right? Like, how do we create super actionable, tangible to-dos that now we're committing to? And then how do we set a date, whether it's 45, 60, 90 days, depending what's on the list, from now, where everybody that's here in this meeting, we're all going to meet again in 60 days or whatever it is. And you're actually going to hold me accountable to, did my team do everything that we said that we were going to do?
Yeah.
And again, I think execution can be as inspiring as inspirational words, if not more so, because then it's like, now I get to come back to you in 60 days. I get to show you everything that I did, that I said I was going to do. And now we have trust rebuilt. And by the way, maybe now I can start sharing some of those words of, hey, okay, now that you've seen that we can execute, that we're serious about this partnership, here's where we want to go. But execution is the key that unlocks that door.
That's such I love that anecdote. You must, I mean, I don't think any integration has ever gone 100% perfectly that I've ever seen. So I'm sure you travel a lot, but I think, being there in person, reminds them that it turns out you are a human and you were just doing your best too. And you have a business mandate that is not at all personal. It's just like, you just have to do certain things and get them done. And I think that like leveling can be like a really helpful reminder. But to your point, I love that trust building via effective execution, because that foundation of trust, I think that once that breaks, it's really hard to recover. I've been thinking a lot about sort of like vision. I think I mentioned again that we have an offsite this week. So I've been thinking about, quarter goals, annual goals, 5-year goals. We do EOS in our company.
Oh, sweet.
Uh,
Yeah, I'm like the most hardcore EOS disciple. Yeah.
yeah, I think I have traction somewhere in here. Um, um, how do you think about, you have this unique, I'm not gonna say problem, opportunity, challenge, puzzle to set plans that are not only sort of at a platform level, but every one of your practices, your partners is on a different phase of that journey. How do you balance sort of the vision of the platform with the intricacies and nuances of the fact that like it is a federation of states
Yeah.
versus one sort of single nation?
Yeah. I think that, it can get easy sometimes to focus on the corporate structure of Alpha, right? And it's fun. I love it. And we need to focus on it. But ultimately, the reason that we're in business is to operate our medical spas at a really, effective and healthy and high level, while having fun.
Yeah.
And I like to add that in, because I'm always asking my team, are you having fun? And just a quick aside, and I'm going to answer your question. One of our team members, Jessica, she used to work at Best Buy. And I'm always asking her, Jess, you having fun? You having fun? And we're going, like, business is tough, right? So
Yeah.
like, I don't care what business. Like, I remember when we had 2 employees, business is tough. Like, it's just the nature of having a business. And if you're an entrepreneur, you understand that. I'm like, you having fun? And she told me Best Buy's motto, which I have adopted as my own. I think it's like the best motto in the world. It's having fun while being the best. And I thought that was so great. So anyway, I love that. I love that motto. But back to your question. We're in business, yes, partially to have fun, to do something inspiring, but also to grow our practices, right? And we don't shy away from that. We have to grow our practices. We're all here. Our partners are all here at Alpha because we believe that when we come together and we work hard and we build something special, the sum of our parts is greater than the parts individually, right? That the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So you mentioned EOS. So we do level 10s with our clinic managers, right? So one thing that I don't want our clinic managers or our partners to feel is like, my clinic is now Alpha's movie, right? I want them to feel like, hey, this is my movie. I'm in the catbird seat. I work really closely with our director of ops, right? They're a thought partner, technically, all right? They report into them. But we do want our managers to feel intrinsically motivated. So we do, we just launched this, but on a quarterly basis, asking our clinic managers, what are your 3 to 7 rocks? What are your 3 to 7 goals for your practice? Where do you want to take this thing? And, those goals will be set in concert with our Alpha Ops team, right? Because we have certain things that we see as opportunities for each of our clinics. But yeah, I mean, that's a huge part of it. And I also think that's part of the magic of Alpha, right? Which is running a clinic is lonely. And I know that because I've done it, right? I've done it at the most tiny level, right? Where we had, just one provider, all the way to now we have hundreds of providers, right? It's lonely. So there's something beautiful that happens in these level 10s when it's like all of our East Coast partners are on a level 10. All of our West Coast partners on a level 10. They're looking at the same scoreboard. They're problem solving. They're ideating together. It's a mastermind, but it's also, are you doing what you said you were going to do? You said that these were the 5 priorities in your practice this quarter. Are you taking action accordingly? We also do that in every single function of Alpha. Every single function, the C-suite, ops, M&A, HR, IT, finance, right? Every single function also has a weekly level 10 where they're jamming through, again, what's the scoreboard that we're looking at on a weekly basis? What are our rocks that we're jamming through this quarter? What are the issues that we need to ideate on together? What are the things that we said we were going to do last week? Did we do everything we said we were going to do? Holding everybody accountable, right? And so, every function, every clinic is a part of that level 10 infrastructure.
That's such a great, I mean, I think the answer in part is trusted frameworks and making sure that you use them, right? And that the frameworks all sort of talk together. And I love that you have a similar framework for the corporate quote unquote team than you do in the practices, because I think it can be so tricky and maybe just, problematic in some ways when they're run fundamentally differently, because you are one, to your point. And
Yep.
I mean, do you ever get the partners actually together physically? Has that been something that you've thought about or done?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah. So we call it our partner con. Yeah. Our first partner con was in Nashville. Our next partner con is in Austin. And I mean, that's the most beautiful 3 days of the year for us. And it's so fun because, there's this incredible synergy between our partners where they don't always get to be in the same room at the same time. In fact, they rarely do. But when they do see each other, we are on Zoom calls. We meet every month with every single partner. We're super transparent. Here's what went well last month. Here's some opportunities based on what happened last month. Here's how we're thinking about the business. Here's new initiatives. I mean, this is a true partnership. And I'd say you'd be hard pressed to find a platform that's just as transparent as we are with our partners. I don't want to be the rah-rah guy. I want to be the, hey, like, I can always count on John to tell me the truth. It might not always be what I want to hear, but he's always going to tell me the truth. So yeah, we do that monthly. We do that quarterly. We do that annually in person. Obviously the others are virtual. But yeah, we're always looking for ways to synergize our partners, their teams, especially their teams, right? Our partners are typically more incentivized than the teams, for obvious reasons, right? But this is a road show that I did, a year ago, and I had this aha moment is I went to every single clinic over the span of a couple months. And I asked almost every single team member, I had a blue notebook that I walked around. How's the Alpha partnership been for you? And the response that I got from a lot of people was, it's fine. Like it's fine. It doesn't feel that different.
Yeah.
Which I actually took as a small win, right? Because I don't think anybody was like, our business. It was great. Now it's terrible.
Yeah.
Everybody was just like, hey, it's fine. It doesn't feel that different. So the question that I asked myself was, okay, well, what would have to be true for me to come back next year, for me to ask the same question, and for the people that I interview to say, you know what, this is actually the best thing that ever happened to me professionally. I have more training. I have more financial opportunity. I have more synergy, more mastermind opportunities. So those were all things that we started to put into place immediately last year, right? So synergizing all of our team on Slack by department, right? All of our injectors in an injector channel, all of our SDs, all of our body, all of our surgeons, all of our managers, right? If you're a part of Alpha, you're probably on that Slack channel or one of those Slack channels. And so also, over Zoom, masterminds for our injectors over Zoom. Now we have really cool training opportunities with what I would consider like the Mount Rushmore types of our space. Like we had Julie Horn talking to all of our injectors about how she injects lips. We had Tom Van Eyck talking to all of our injectors about how to do the ferning technique. And the list goes on. Our last one was with Lori Robertson. It was incredible. She did an amazing job. So the things like that, where now I get to meet with not just partners, but their teams. And they're like, this is amazing. Like, we didn't have almost any of this before. We still have the clinical autonomy. We still have a great culture, but now we've layered in all of these awesome opportunities that just weren't present previously.
Oh, how amazing. I mean, I think it's so true that humans are humans are humans. And, when professional change happens, and I don't say this negatively, I think it's just like this is the question be asked, what's in it for me? Right. And I think we sometimes forget that there's a very clear what's in it for me for the partner, but actually in order for Alpha to be successful, every other single person in that room needs to have an answer to that as well. It's amazing, how much Slack impacts. So I think Slack is single-handedly such a bonus to culture, just anecdotally. But that partner con, Alpha
Partner con. Yeah, partner con.
you're talking about, that must be like for you, that must be such a powerful event. I hope that you every once in a while allow yourself to like pause and just sort of enjoy watching what you've built, because that must be so magical.
You know what? I don't take the time as much as I wish I did to reflect on kind of the journey. I'm grateful for it though. And yeah, PartnerCon was a high for sure. I mean, it was an absolute high point. And it was just really fun to get everybody together and just celebrate. Like, look what we've done. Look what we've built together. And, especially with some of the earliest partners, they took massive risk in joining Alpha, right? We hadn't proven what we would be. We were just kind of a dream and people joining, and it's like you pinch yourself. Same with some of the early executive team and some of the early Alpha team. It's like we said we were going to do this and we did it, and that's really, really exciting. It's a shot in the arm. The other thing that I'll say too, and you mentioned running at the corporate level the same way that we are at the clinical level. That's why. So EOS, as you know, stands for Entrepreneur Operating System. So that's what I love about it, right? Is it's an operating system that we can install everywhere, and we can be operating. Now our clinics know, hey, what's Alpha's big rocks that they're trying to move as a company? Yeah. What's the 1, 3, and 10-year targets for Alpha? What's the VTO or the Vision Traction Organizer for Alpha? And so now we're all speaking the same language, right? Working with them over time to develop their own VTO for their clinics with the partners, right? And now, again, it's that same operating system. Yeah. And that's, again, something that we're really focused on at Alpha is really, really world-class integrations. Mm-hmm. So the EOS is a part of it, right? But there's a host of things where this isn't just a financial engineering effort. Like, we're actually building a great, inspiring, well-constructed, well-thought-out company that isn't just a hodgepodge of med spas all around the U.S., but it really is one company with a really strong foundation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that they can look up, right? Like they can also see what's in your, you do a better job of memorizing the acronyms than I do, but they can see what your rocks are and your goals and the future plan. I think that's really amazing. And also sort of the accountability piece, which I think folks often forget that, in order for you all to do well, like if I'm Annie and I own Annie Med Spa and you're John and you own your John Med Spa, I mean, you will be more successful if I'm successful. Mm-hmm. And so that sort of human to human accountability of like, wow, we're all doing this together. And like, I think of myself as a steward of not only my resources, but yours, right? And taking that really seriously, because I think we can sort of kind of forget who that LPs are. We kind of forget behind the scenes, like what we're actually doing here, which is hopefully actually having some really meaningful impact on a lot of lives for a really great reason.
100%.
So I always love to kind of wrap up with a few just rapid fire questions.
Yeah, right.
So we could do those and then see where that leaves us. But, some of these are themes that we've touched on, but what is the hardest part of your job and what is your most fun day-to-day part of your job?
Yeah, I think, the hardest part is just staying fully present and fully calm. Not that that's hard for me, but like that would be hard in the sense of like, that's where kind of that world-class executive muscle that when I hear hard, I think like, what's maybe something that I have to do. I'm trying not to sound prideful or boastful or anything like that at all, because I'm not meaning it to come across this way, but like when I hear you say hard, I'm not talking about this like that it's hard for me, which it's a challenge. It's something I have to be aware of and be present to, but yeah, it's something in the sense of that maybe not everybody could do it without a lot of work. And that is, again, yeah, just dealing with every single day. There are difficult issues to solve.
Yep.
And to stay positive, to stay present, to stay grateful, to stay open, We call it Above the Line. My favorite book on leadership, 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership, to stay above the line, to stay curious, to not go into defensive mode, or, but just, again, to stay open to it.
Yeah.
That is the hardest part.
Yeah.
But I also love that. Like, I love the challenge of it. And again, it's a personal growth mechanism, unlike anything else has been in my life outside of, probably parenting and marriage.
Yeah.
The fun part about what I get to do is, man, I love creating opportunity for our providers. That's been really fun. I love where I lean in is I love building brand, and I love building culture. I love building like this movement of alpha. I love aesthetics. I love the access that I get to a lot of these brands of just seeing what the future holds in aesthetics. My wife's an injector. My father-in-law is a facial plastic surgeon. My mother-in-law worked in the business. I'm one of the, I don't know, maybe there's a few others, but I'm not an outsider coming into aesthetics. This has been home for me for, 7-8 years. And so I love what I get to do from an industry standpoint or specialty standpoint. So those would be some of the fun things. Also, I love my team. I love our partners. I'm so grateful for our executive team. I've worked really, really hard to put together this incredible group of humans that are super experienced and really, really good at what they do. I mean, that's really, really fun for me. So those would be some of the highlights.
Well, maybe we should just sort of put this as a little soundbite, and then if you're ever having a hard day, you can just you just replay this moment, because it's true. It's like, how lucky are we? It's such a fun space, and you have the unique, I think, background of you have gone through the process, obviously earlier on, but you were a practice owner, and so you have gone through the practice that you are now the CEO of the platform. So you've really lived and breathed that experience. And to your point, the staying open, you do get really good at receiving feedback, huh? It's like, you just have to take a deep breath and own it.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
there's a book that I love, or I enjoy. It's not like my favorite book of all time, but it's been helpful. It's been recommended to me many times as well. The 4 Agreements. And one of those agreements is don't take things personally. And I think there's things that we can take personal, right? Like there are times that I fail, and I need to own that, right? But there's a lot of situations where somebody does something that's painful, and you just have to say, what, that actually says more about that person and their internal world and their story than it does about me and anything that I've done to them. And I'm just going to choose to not take it personally. I'm going to choose to respond, not to react, to stay really clear-headed, and just to unpack the situation, every layer of it, and really deliberately respond to the situation at hand.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I imagine sort of showing up at a practice. I imagine that, I think about high stress pressure situations. It's almost like you come into a room, there's a big, huge balloon that's about to pop. It's like, let's just pop the balloon and let's all just calm down. I think there's sort of a leveling, grounding piece of that. And there's so many books that I'm now going to have to read. Now I need to know what these 4 things are to be a good leader. But I think you've given yourself your own MBA, John. It sounds like via all of your reading, and of course your financial boot camp, your first year of alpha work.
Well, that's something that I think hopefully every listener, no matter what stage, like I said, I have my master's in divinity. I felt like 95% of my master's degree was just reading books that the professor asked us to read. It's like, man, I spent a lot of money to read these books that you're telling me to read here. I could have just bought the book. So I kind of take that approach to everything in life, right? And I've seen graphics, I don't know if they're true or untrue, but yeah, if you read a certain number of books, you combine that with life experience, you got some pretty significant knowledge on a certain topic. And I think there's a lot of business owners, right, that have kind of stumbled into it, or, maybe it's a second career, whatever it might be. And yeah, it's just, man, being a voracious learner, voracious leader, reader, listener, right? All these things. That's kind of been my story and my journey.
Well, I think we can stop there. Thank you so much for joining, John. It's been just a delight as always to talk with you. I'm sure I'll be thinking about some of these things as I head into my day. But looking forward to posting this and sharing what you had to say with a lot of folks.
Heck yeah. Thanks for having me, Annie. It's a pleasure.